that there really needs to be an overhaul of the immigration system, and that's something that immigrant advocates have been calling for years.
Right, right.
And this only proves it. It's not that the INS didn't have the capability to find these people. It's that the tracking systems that were legislated into law years ago were not put into practice. We need better consular processing. We need other provisions. We don't necessarily need to kick out people that are in this country working hard and paying their taxes.
We certainly need a much more equitable system, don't we? Definitely. I want to thank you very much for joining me. We seem to have run out of time. You know, this is quite informative. I wish you well with CIRAC and Nepalsi, and it's time for us to take a short break. Don't go away. Stay tuned.
In nature, we see reflections of our children. The tree is the strong one, the ocean rambunctious and untamed. Like our children, each brings something wonderful and unique. They add color, they bring life. And to choose the sky over the water would be like choosing one child over the next. EarthShare, the world's leading environmental groups working together. To learn how you and your employer can help, visit our website.
Welcome back to Ginny's, where East meets West. For this next segment, I am joined by Deepa Iyer from SALT, the South Asian American Leaders of Tomorrow, and Christine Manami, JACL's Washington, D.C. representative, whose father and grandfather were both interned during World War II. Welcome. We just discussed the impact of September 11th on American citizens and on particular communities, specifically those who are perceived to be Arabs and Muslims. Now, Christine, talk a little bit about what your family went through, okay, during World War II and the whole internment experience, because I think that there's a definite link to what possibly could take place in terms of the future of this country.
Well, unfortunately, one dark episode in our history as Americans is what happened to the Japanese American population during World War II. After Pearl Harbor was bombed, within 2 months, an executive order was signed which sent all of the Japanese Americans on the West Coast, so 120,000 individuals, 2/3 of which were American citizens, to camps in the interior. That's my father at age 4, who was clearly not a security threat, but deemed one by this, this order. My grandmother, my, great aunts and uncles, my grandfather, my great-grandparents. I mean, pretty much the entire West Coast population of Japanese Americans, which, of course, is the majority of the Japanese American population in the United States then.
So this was at a time when our country was at war and the people were fearful.
Yeah, there was definitely war hysteria, but there was also a lack of political leadership, I think. Nobody willing to make the distinction between Japanese and Japanese Americans. And in fact, and unfortunately, the rationale was used that, and then this was stated, well, just because they haven't done anything yet, that's exactly the evidence we need to show that they're going to do something.
Right,
and
right. Let's be proactive.
Yeah,
right?
So that's why let's prevent it before it happens kind of attitude.
Well, here we are, a country somewhat at war. Its people are fearful. Are we headed down that road? I mean, Deepa, what do you think? Are we headed in that direction?
Well, I sincerely hope not, but unfortunately, there has been a lot of what we call backlash against individuals, as you mentioned, who are perceived to be Arab or Middle Eastern or Muslim. And in fact, there was a poll that was taken in the country a few weeks after September 11th, which asked whether or not
present a report.
We did, but as far as the Japanese American internment situation, there was a poll that asked whether or not people who are Muslim or Arab American should be interned. And a majority of individuals actually in the country responded that that might be a good idea.
Right,
so unfortunately, I think that there has been this trend of backlash against certain individuals, which has led to assaults, deaths, and basically assaults on even religious places of worship. And that's the report that you had mentioned that my organization put together. which compiled a list of incidents that happened right within a week after the attacks on September 11th. And we found that there were over 600 incidents of bias discrimination.
In 1 week?
In 1 week, ranging from everything from individuals getting shot and killed to assaults and vandalism at religious places of worship to verbal harassment, threats, profiling, and this all happened, as you said, within the span of 1 week. And since then, unfortunately, we've seen more deaths, more assaults. So there is a concern that we are headed perhaps down that path, and sincerely hope that it doesn't go that far.
You know, when in the segment before this, we talked about the detainment of, individuals, just basically, for reasons of suspicion. And, when we start doing that in the interest of national security, where do we draw that line? Where do we draw the line between what is legitimately national security and what falls into that fringe of loss of individuals' rights?
I think there's a danger in casting a net that's very wide or very broad. One of the things that we've been seeing is what's been happening on airplanes, right, where individuals have been taken off a plane deemed to be security threats just because they look Middle Eastern. And I think that it's important to make sure that when those types of security measures are taken, that they're made because there is some sort of evidence indicating that a particular individual could be a security threat, and it's not a wide net, that it's not because they look a certain way or they ask a certain question, but there are actual pieces of evidence that can be relied upon.
But do we have time for all of that? Sometimes